What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, the Young Noodler, here with another video. Today, we are going to be talking about 3 of the guns that are kind of now meta in Warzone. One that has been meta, the NZ-41, and then 2 that now are, the Kilo and the Amax. Like I said, the NZ-41 has been reigning supreme. It's been the king of Warzone for the past few months, but Raven has been slowly nerfing it. And now with the latest patch notes, we've seen that the Kilo and the Amax have been buffed. Those are 2 fan favorites for Modern Warfare. So we're going to check out a couple different things. This isn't meant to be an all-inclusive video, but it's going to be a short video highlighting some of the big differences between those and to see, can the Kilo and the Amax really live up to the NZ-41 hype, and have they brought down the NZ-41 enough? Let's get right into it. First of all, I'm going to talk about the big change with the Kilo. The big change with the Kilo is they took off this is the damage range of the Kilo. I have it way down here so you guys can see it a little better because of my stupid webcam. But so they took off this 3rd tier, which is the initial nerf. It used to reign supreme back in Modern Warfare days, and then they added this 3rd tier, and it completely wiped it off the meta. Nobody ever used it again. I mean, people used it because they liked it, but it wasn't really meta. But now that they've done this again, people are coming back to it. So that's the huge change with the Kilo. The big change with the Amax is they increased the minimum damage range. It's always been, or the minimum damage. It's always been okay, but with this buff, we should start hitting more consistent numbers with it. So first of all, we're going to look at 2 things, the TTK and the DPS. As you guys know, I'm sure you guys know by now, the TTK is like, if all shots hit, if it's perfect, this is the TTK. And the DPS is probably a more consistent number. You know, are you team shooting him? Does he have full plates? Is he at this perfect 250 or 300 for Caldera? Where are you hitting him perfect? You know, it's a lot more consistent number rather than the TTK. So we're going to be looking at both of those. Let's start off with Rebirth. I'm not even actually going to get into Caldera because most people are on Rebirth. But so 250 chest. The TTK goes to the Amax and the NZ-41 with the Kilo in last. And I can go through all of these, but really that doesn't change. The Amax is generally in first. Sometimes the NZ-41 is right there, but the Kilo is last in TTK. And I'll show you guys that as we go to head. Here's the Amax and the NZ-41 neck and neck, and then the Kilo is down below. As we go to stomach, Amax, NZ-41, Kilo last. And so we see that all over. Here we go, limbs, Amax, NZ-41, Kilo last. So now you guys are thinking, okay, Kilo is the weakest. But as we move to DPS, it's completely flipped. It doesn't make any sense. But the Kilo, I mean, it makes sense if you delve into the numbers, but not what you would think. Here's the Kilo on top, and then the Amax and NZ-41. As we go up to the stomach, Kilo on top, Amax, NZ-41. Chest, Kilo, NZ-41, Amax, but Kilo's on top. And finally head, Kilo, Amax, NZ-41. So it's just switching up. It's kind of crazy that the Kilo has the best DPS, but the worst TTKs in general. And I started making a chart about that. Started making a chart about that, but then I realized it's all the same. I mean, the TTK is almost always Amax, and the DPS is always Kilo. So there's not much memorizing there to do. So Kilo is going to be probably more consistent, but you can reach those higher TTKs and those, you know, those really snappy kills with the NZ-41 and the Amax a little bit better. All right, so now let's talk about range a little bit. And so it's just going to be really brief because they're all pretty similar. The Amax has the worst range, and the first damage drop off is at 25 meters. But still at 25 meters, even when it drops off, it's still better than the NZ-41's TTK or DPS. And so it's not that bad. The Kilo drops off at 32 and the NZ-41 at 33. And so they're all generally the same. That's about the range you expect with ARs. But the Amax is a little bit worse, but even with that worse range, you know, it's still very comparable right there. All right, so now let's move into Recoil because, yeah, TTK is great, DPS is great, but if you can't hit your shots, that doesn't really matter. You can have a great TTK and it's only 3 shots, but if you can only hit the first or this first 2, doesn't matter. So moving into Recoil, this is the Amax to start off. You guys are going to see it goes about halfway up the wall, primarily vertical recoil. That's really all there is to it. Next, we're going to go to the Kilo, and I'll show you guys the after, so don't worry. There's the Kilo. You can see a lot less vertical recoil. It's about, I don't know, 1/3 of the vertical recoil as the Amax. and then finally the NZ-41, and this is going to be a kicker. One of the biggest nerfs from this patch notes for the NZ-41 was decreased recoil control during sustained fire, and you can see how big of a difference that is. You can see that this is huge. And so as we move, this guy wasn't even on my team. He just, I don't know why he didn't shoot me. He came around and meleeed me. Thanks for letting me get my shot, buddy. Anyways, this is what it looks like all compared. This is the Amax, about halfway up, primarily vertical recoil. The Kilo is just a tiny amount of vertical recoil, but it does have that kick to the left. A lot more horizontal recoil than either of these. And the NZ-41, like we said, kicks huge during sustained fire. These first few shots are going to beam. You can see how close these are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, the first 10 shots are all right there. So if you can hit those 10 shots, you're fine. But then during sustained fire, yeah, it is going to start to get a little out of control. But these first 10 shots are all in the same cluster. All, I mean, straight up and down. And something to keep in mind here is vertical recoil is a lot easier to control than horizontal recoil. And so, yeah, the Kilo has the least vertical recoil, but it has a lot more horizontal recoil. On top of that, a lot of people don't like it when it curves to the left. Most guns in Warzone curve to the right, and so that's what we're used to. So when it curves to the left, it gets a little bit trickier. But still, I mean, such little vertical recoil. And on top of that, keep in mind, obviously, all the attachments. You can put 10 attachments on the NZ-41. This is just the base model. This you can put 5 on each of the Amax and the Kilo. So you can control the recoil a little more with attachments, so you should be fine. But with the base recoil, I mean, that's going to be decently easy to control. After that, tough. Amax is kind of a big jump. That's going to be a higher skill gun, but that's why it has the best TTKs. And then the Kilo is pretty easy to control as well. So there's the main points. With your ARs, you're really looking at the TTK/DPS, the range, and the recoil patterns. With SMGs, there's a little bit more. You know, you're more worried about the hip fire. You're more worried about the running speed and everything. But with your ARs, you're not that worried about that because you can just switch to your SMG in those close quarter situations. One final thing I want to touch on is the Amax and the Kilo are modern warfare weapons. Obviously, in the NZ-41 is obviously a Vanguard weapon, and so one difference there is going to be the sight. And as you can see, a lot of people like this VLK, which is what most people are going to run because you want a little bit more range on it. But the VLK takes up a lot more of your screen than the sight that you're probably going to be running with the NZ-41, which is the 2.5 times scope. So you can see that that's a lot cleaner of a scope. You can see a lot more, you know, in here. And so in those long range situations, yeah, that's fine. But in the medium range situations, it's going to cut off a lot, as you can see right here. I mean, this is cutting off a lot of this, and this is short range, of course, but still just something to keep in mind that the VLK is going to cut off a lot more of your picture than the 2.5 times will with the Vanguard gun. So that's something else to keep in mind with the NZ-41 when you're thinking about what to use. But there it is. I mean, all three guns are going to be very viable. You're going to see them all. The NZ-41, I know that it looked like the recoil pattern was kind of insane during sustained fire, but with the attachments, you're going to be able to, you know, control it very easy. But the good news in all of this is a lot of people are Modern Warfare fanatics, and so they're going to love that the Kilo and the Amax are back, and they really are back. I think the Kilo is going to be better than the Amax, but the Amax is going to be, you know, top tier viable. It's going to be very good. I'm not going to touch on the attachments that you should use during this video. There's plenty of other videos for that. I just wanted to give a quick comparison on the main points in these and show that, hey, you can use any of them. So welcome back, Modern Warfare. Thanks, guys, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.